All right. What's up, everybody? It has been, goodness, probably, I think 3 months, 4 months since the last one that we did. So it is good to be back. It was nice to have a little bit of time to readjust to the new schedule with the newborn and kind of settle in to that. But we should be back to doing these pretty regularly, especially after the new year. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the routine of doing these. But if this is your first time, this is the RDU Buzz podcast where we go over all things real estate, recreation, restaurants in the Raleigh Durham area. And we try to do one of these live or at least pre-recorded every Thursday evening, which is what we're going to start doing again come the new year. So it is good to be back though. So if you are joining us, make sure to put in the comments where you are joining from. Again, this is a pre-recorded one, but hopefully we'll be back to doing the live one soon. But drop us a comment where you're joining from. It's always interesting to see where folks join from. When I was trying to prep for this, I was like, goodness, where do I even begin? It's been such a long time. So I just tried to grab a handful of news stories. Most of them are recent news stories, but there's one in particular that's slightly old that I thought was pertinent to cover. But we'll start with some local news stories that are happening in the area. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the Fed did today. If you're watching this live on Thursday, it'll be tomorrow. But I'm recording this right after the Fed announced their interest rate drop. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I think how that will affect the market in general. But so first up, some exciting news about the new Disney community, Asteria, coming to Chatham County. So for those of you who aren't familiar about this, there's a massive neighborhood in Chatham County. It's in Pittsboro called Chatham Park. Chatham Park, when it is built out over the next essentially 2 decades, is going to be roughly 20,000 homes. We actually did a video that we dropped this week that went over some of the areas that we expect to see the most growth in over the next decade. And in Chatham County, Pittsboro is on that list. There was an interesting fact that one of the developers of Chatham Park put out, basically projecting the population in Chatham County going from 80,000, which is what it is currently, to 300,000. I mean, that's just I seriously, I can't even wrap my mind around that kind of population growth. I mean, to put it in perspective, if you're familiar with our area, Durham, the city of Durham's about 250,000. So you're talking Chatham County essentially in the next 20 years surpassing the size of the city of Durham. And that is truly mind-blowing when you think about it. So and Chatham Park is part of that I guess driver of growth in the Pittsboro area and the Chatham County area. And part of Chatham Park, the neighborhood, is the Disney community, Asteria, which is going to be 4,000 residential units. I think some of this is going to be multifamily, some of it's going to be single family homes. But at the end of the day, it's going to be 4,000 units total on 1,500 acres. And the expectation is that development will start at some point next year. So some point in 2025, with the expectation that homes will go for sale sometime in 2027, it sounds like. There's not a lot that's known about this community in general. So I'm really curious to find out what the home prices are going to be. Who are the builders going to be? What's the community going to look like? What are the amenities going to look like? And it's fascinating. In this Triangle Business Journal article, one of the masterminds behind Chatham Park was basically like, there's a lot that's secretive about this, things that we don't even know that's going to go on. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch as Disney rolls out what this portion of Chatham Park is going to look like, what their neighborhood is going to look like, what amenities are there. And I think, a lot of folks are going to be interested in what are the home prices going to look like? Who are the builders? But I think some exciting news that they'll be hopefully starting to develop it sometime in 2025. And for those who follow, I guess maybe Disney related things, you might know that there's another community Disney's building out in California. I think the name of it is Cortino, I believe. So I mean, you could look at what they're doing and maybe get an idea of what's coming to our area, but I think it'll be drastically different. I think the price points will be different. I think the amenity offerings will be different, just because in California it tends to be it's a completely different environment, completely different landscape, completely different real estate market. So, but I think you can look at some of the creativity that they're doing with that community and draw some conclusions here about what this community will look like in Pittsboro. But all in all, I'm excited about it. I think it's really cool. One thing that Pittsboro needs is, with this amount of residential growth, is commercial development, and that's my biggest concern, is how quickly will the commercial development keep up with the residential development, because you need things like grocery stores, and you need Walmarts, and you need Targets, and you need all these things to support this amount of people coming to the area. So I hope that there's a lot of planning in place to bring about that development as more and more people move into the Pittsboro, Chatham County area. But anyway, I was excited about that. I love it. Cindy is probably going to try to push us to live in this neighborhood, but I will veto that decision. So, but I think it could be a cool place. So some old news I wanted to cover. Y'all may have read about this, sports and recreation community center that Cary was looking at, and it was going to be a pretty significant development. I'm just reading some stats here. Looks like 70,000 square foot community center with amenities for seniors, an esports center. I'm going to share this screen so you can see what I'm looking at here. So pretty cool concept art here, an esports center. So for those of you who don't know, Epic Games, which is the creator of the popular game Fortnite, is based out of Cary. So to have an esports center actually makes a lot of sense in Cary because of Epic Games' presence there. 8 multi-purpose courts, and I think they were going to have one of these that had like this digital type floor. I know absolutely nothing about it, but I'd read something along those lines. But anyway, long story short, this development was part of a bond that was put before Cary during this past election, this past November. That's why I say this is old news, because this is essentially coming out of the election in November. And it was struck down. The town, the residents of the town of Cary said, no, we don't want this. The bond that they were going to use to deal with this was going to be a $560 million parks and recreation bond. Let me pull up the screen here so you can see it as well. And it wasn't just going to be this recreation center, this really large recreation center. It actually had a lot. They had this Asian Garden master plan. It's going to be $10 million to develop a 1 to 2 acre Asian Garden. Cary Tennis and Park, pickleball expansion, Mills Park Community Center. Looks like another park here. This is the Sports and Recreation Community Center that we were just talking about, going into the South Hills district. 300 million of that 560 million is going to be allocated towards that. And then the Walnut Creek Greenway. But the residents of Cary voted against it. I think it was, I think 56% of the residents of Cary voted no on this bond. And it's easy. I mean, I don't live in the town of Cary. It's easy to look at these things and be like, wow, like that, those are really neat things. But it's honestly, it's kind of bad timing to put forth such a high bond, or an expensive bond, because it was going to raise the property taxes for the residents of Cary, I think by 9 cents over a 3-year course or something along those lines. And when you look at how much property taxes have gone up this year because Wake County reassessed the value, so everybody's property taxes increased that lived in Wake County, and then you're asking the folks of Cary to be willing to increase their taxes even more to pay for this. I think people just got to a point where they're like, it's just not worth it. Like, we don't want any more taxes, any more property taxes than what we already got, because 2024 saw a massive increase for everyone in Wake County, not just Cary, but everyone in Wake County saw a significant increase in their property taxes. So will some of these things on this list come to fruition down the road? Possibly. But at this point, a lot of it's kind of dead on arrival due to the bond failing. But anyway, this Sportsplex was something that had been announced a while back. People were really excited about it, but it's a lot different when your county assesses the value of your home. You see significant increase in your taxes, and then you're having to vote essentially for higher taxes in order to pay for something like this. So that's the reason it failed. I don't know. Maybe the developer will pick up the tab and actually move through with it. So we'll see. But I thought it was worthwhile at least covering, because it was something that was pretty big in the news when it was first announced. But it's something that doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition anytime soon. So something that is coming to fruition is Bill Belichick. We don't cover a lot of sports on this podcast because in general, our area is just not a big sports area outside of college. We do have the Carolina Hurricanes. Maybe sometime down the road, we'll have a Major League Baseball team. There is some hope for that. The Carolina Hurricanes owner is actually very involved in that process and trying to court a Major League Baseball expansion team to the Raleigh area, which I think would be fantastic. Our area could 100% support that, I think. But anyway, all that to say, there's just not a lot outside of college sports to cover here. But when Bill Belichick comes to your area to be the head coach of a local football team, that would be the Carolina Tar Heels, that is big news. Bill Belichick is getting a contract. I think it's a 5-year contract, $10 million each year, so $50 million. And it includes bonuses all throughout. Let me see. I had the article pulled up that had the bonuses on here. I don't see it, but anyway, okay, here we go. 5-year deal runs through December 2029, is worth $10 million per season, a $1 million base salary and $9 million supplemental income. The first 3 years of the deal are guaranteed, so $30 million of that $50 million is guaranteed. He could also receive $3.5 million per season in bonuses tied to regular season wins, ACC championship game, and postseason appearances. So I don't know. I was never a Patriots fan. I'm a Panthers fan, and I wish I was a Patriots fan. Actually, pull for a team that has success, or I guess used to have success. But and I'm not a Tar Heels fan either. But the fact that Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, some would say he is the greatest coach of all time, come into your area to coach college. Like, it makes me want to go to a Carolina football game and watch just to see Bill Belichick coach a game. He's just such a historic figure now. So I think it's really cool. And I it brings a buzz about the area, Chapel Hill. It just, I think it's neat. It's neat to go to like an ESPN website and read about Bill Belichick living here, coaching here in our area. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. Our area is a really good area, and when it hits the national news for something like this, I think it's pretty cool. So I don't know what I've listened to all the sports heads talk about you know, or the talking sports heads talk about, why they think he took the UNC job and this and that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really cool thing for the area. I think it's a really cool thing for Chapel Hill. As a Duke fan, I hope they don't get too good. But I think it's great. So a little bit about sports in the area. So moving to another really cool thing. So Prime Barbecue, we've mentioned multiple times on here, is our favorite barbecue restaurant in the Triangle. It's located in Knightdale. It's one of the best things about Knightdale, the barbecue restaurant and Knightdale Station Park. They're located right by each other. You can eat great barbecue and literally take your kids to a splash pad right off. Sorry about that. Thought I had my phone on Do Not Disturb. And literally take your kids to a splash pad or a park right across the street. It's just a really cool place. So Prime Barbecue is expanding, and they're going to be opening up a location in the Research Triangle Park next year, 2025. So I am really excited about this. We live nowhere close to Knightdale, so we make it to Prime Barbecue very rarely, honestly. But once they are in the Research Triangle Park, we live much, much closer to that location, and we will absolutely be visiting this. So I didn't do a ton of I probably should actually read about what the new location was gonna look like, and I didn't. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited. Prime Barbecue is fantastic. If you've never eaten there and you live in the area, make sure to make the trek to Knightdale just to try it out. But if you don't live close to Knightdale, you could probably hold off for a little bit longer, and you could try their location in the Research Triangle Park, which is seeing a massive growth due to the hub at the Research Triangle Park, which I think is where the new Prime location is going. So the hub's going to be really cool when it opens. I know we've covered that in detail here, and we'll continue to cover it. So we'll kind of dig in a little deeper as things open up there. But that's going to be a really neat area. So here's an interesting story. Triangle Business Journal this week put out a story on areas where that are top destinations for senior citizens. And Raleigh-Cary is number 3 on the list. Actually, 2 places in North Carolina made the list. Wilmington made the list as number 2, just barely outpacing the Raleigh-Cary Metro. And then the Raleigh-Cary Metro made the list as number 3, most popular area. The number 1 spot, I think it was I was going to say, I think it was Myrtle Beach, and it is Myrtle Beach. Here, I'll pull this chart up here so y'all can see it. Huh. Let me see. Sorry about that, y'all. All right. So, here's the chart. Myrtle Beach is number 1, Wilmington, and then you've got the Raleigh-Cary Metro, and Austin is 5th on the list. So this is from 2020 to 2023 areas of migration for older populations in the U.S. I don't think, does this specify? 65 and over is what they're referring to when they say older population. And quite honestly, there is significant growth when it comes to 55 and up communities in our area. They are everywhere. They're going in everywhere. Durham's breaking ground on 1,000 home 55 and up community just off Highway 98. You just see these places going in all over the place, and it's because there's demand for it. And this honestly does not surprise me one bit. It is fascinating though when you're looking at these areas, these top 5 areas, that Florida isn't on there. And Florida is typically associated with the place where people go to retire. But on this list, North Carolina, North Carolina is 2 out of the top 5 are North Carolina areas. And it does, this census website breaks it down a little bit further as far as like where working age folks are going. Utah dominates the list. Actually, Utah and Florida dominate the list for working age population. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. But with how many 55 and up communities are going into our region, this is not surprising whatsoever. The demand is there, so they're building for it. And the demand will probably be there for a while. We have a great climate. We're an affordable area. You don't have the insurance concerns in our area that you do in a place like Florida. You don't have the hurricane concerns. You don't have the summers that feel like they just last forever, like they do in Florida. So, in general, this is a great area to retire if you don't want to deal with a lot of snow, right? We get very little snow here. And so it makes sense that this is a growing region for the 65 and up population. All right, moving on, and we'll close it off with the Fed update. So the Fed was projected to drop rates today, and they did. They did not do it by a lot, but they did it by a quarter of a point or 25 basis points. So, and that was their expectation, right? So that no one was expecting a large drop. Well, what this ended up doing is this year, since September, we've had an entire percent drop or 100 basis point drop, which again was the expectation. If you are following the markets, I've got CNBC pulled up here, and the very top of it, breaking Dow tanks 1,100 points, and it's largely due because the Fed was expected to continue somewhat an aggressive approach into 2025 with cutting rates. And it looks like they will pull that back pretty significantly. So it looks like they put this thing out called, I don't know if I saved the website. Let me see. I don't think I did, but they put this thing out. It's called I think it's called the dot chart, but it basically kind of plots where the expectation is that the Fed will go next year. And it looks like you're basically expecting roughly 2 quarter point drops next year. So nothing compared to, I think next year they were originally projecting a percent drop, but now it looks like you're expecting about 2 quarter point drops next year. So what this is pointing to again is inflation is being a little sticky, and they're going to hold rates at that point a little longer to try to get rid of that inflation. So it's just not as good of an outlook as what we had hoped for, or at least what we had thought would be earlier this fall. So it's just, yeah, that's why the Dow's tanking 1,100 points. One question we've gotten a lot lately is, okay, the Fed has obviously dropped rates a decent amount since September. But if you look at interest rates have actually gone up since the Fed started dropping rates. And that's largely because mortgage rates are not tied to what the Fed does necessarily. Mortgage rates are more tied to things like the 10-year Treasury. There's actually a really good article, which I'll link below. It's on Fannie Mae's website. What determines the rate on a 30-year mortgage? And it's actually it's a really good breakdown of that. One thing that happened today, which will probably affect interest rates or mortgage rates, I should specify what rate I'm talking about, mortgage rates tomorrow, is the fact that the 10-year Treasury has spiked some today. And so typically mortgage rates are going to spike with the 10-year. And what we've seen since the Fed began to lower their rate, mortgage rates have actually gone up. So when the Fed started this back in September, mortgage rates were in the low sixes, right around that area. They're now in the upper sixes. They got into the sevens for a bit. Now they're in the upper sixes. With the 10-year kind of spiking a little bit today, you could probably going to see them a little higher tomorrow. If I had to guess, if I had to predict, that's probably what it's going to be. But in general, mortgage rates follow that 10-year treasury, and not necessarily what the Fed is doing. So that's why you've seen kind of this disconnect. You've seen the Fed begin to lower their rate, and at the same time, you've seen mortgage rates begin to climb in that same period. The good news is we haven't seen mortgage rates get into where they were earlier this year, which is close to 8. We've seen them at the highest point right around that 7 mark. And hopefully they don't get any higher than that. But I think, again, kind of the expectation with all of this, really outside of some kind of economic turmoil, a lot of job loss, which no one wants to see, you're really not going to see mortgage rates most likely dip quickly. You'll most likely just see a gradual decline over time. To drop quickly would most likely take some kind of economic turmoil that really no one wants to see. No one wants to see the job loss. No one wants to see any kind of economic situation that would bring about rates dropping in a rapid fashion, mortgage rates. So that's kind of, so like, how does that impact next year in 2025? At the end of the day, I think we're going to see a competitive market, at least in the first part of 2025, no matter what the mortgage rates are. They were around 8% this year. It was bananas from like January until April. Then it honestly kind of fell off a cliff starting in May. And I would expect something pretty similar to that. Mortgage rates, at least for the spring market, tend to just not have any impact whatsoever. So I wouldn't expect them to next year as well. If you're thinking of purchasing a home in the spring months, I would prepare yourself mentally for a competitive market, because that's just typically what we see no matter what rates are. So, all right, that is all I got. Man, it was good. It was good to be back. It was good to get one of these under my belt again. I always get like a little nervous before these. I get, like butterflies. But today was exceptional, probably because I haven't done these in so long. So it makes a lot of sense that I was kind of nervous. But my name's Zach. If I am a real estate agent in the area, my wife is on our team as well. Her name's Cindy. You may have watched our videos before. But if you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be a real estate resource of choice. Our contact info, I always put it in the description below. You can find our number, our email, our website, all of that kind of stuff. So you can dig that up. But yeah, it was good to be back. It's December. I'm filming this December 18th. This will hit on YouTube December 19th. With Christmas coming up, probably won't be back on here for that week or two period until the new year. Then we'll start these back up again. But anyway, hope y'all have a wonderful holiday season, and I will see y'all hopefully in January. All right. Bye, y'all.